It's been 10 long years since the Star Wars sequel trilogy arrived at the big screen. It was the beginning of a new era for the Star Wars franchise that was started by George Lucas in 1977. It's also been 13 years since Disney purchased Lucasfilm and not only brought us a sequel trilogy, but also new Star Wars comics, novels, video games, and new shows both animated and live action such as Rebels, The Mandalorian, Andor, Obi-Wan Kenobi, The Bad Batch, Ahsoka, The Acolyte, Skeleton Crew, The Book of Boba Fett, and Visions. And also, there were movies taking place before the original trilogy such as Rogue One and Solo. When the teaser to Star Wars The Force Awakens was released, the hype was immediately large. But there were some people who believed that it was not going to live up to the spirit of what Star Wars was all about. Some people even went further than that, spewing extreme discontent for the teaser. Once the movie was released, there were fans that walked away happy. Others were still skeptical as they felt that this new movie was a repetition of what Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope was. But then, when the next two movies were released, there were people who believed that the second movie of the sequel trilogy was a grand slam, while others believed that it mocked and ridiculed everything that Star Wars was all about. And then, when the third movie arrived, everyone agreed that it was an absolute failure. Does this trilogy deserve so much negativity? Should it get a little bit more respect? This is a defense of the Star Wars sequel trilogy. Before J.J. Abrams took the reins to make the sequel trilogy, George Lucas had planned a sequel trilogy of his own. A lot of people didn't like his prequel trilogy, some others did. In my opinion, the first of the prequels could have been better. The second one was not really that good, but the animated Clone Wars show redeemed it in many ways. The third one was the crown jewel. Why did a lot of people hate the prequel trilogy? It's a few issues such as writing, acting, pacing, and poorly executed plots. Still, in its defense, it shows how a government can be corrupted from within and how can one lose themselves to the darkness, and some can still see the good in others. I would also say that an order that fights for peace can also have flaws that they cannot even see most times. Now, George Lucas' planned trilogy focused on Anakin's grandchildren being the main characters and also featured the return of Darth Maul and his new apprentice Darth Talon being the villains. Darth Talon would seduce Han and Leia's son to the dark side of the Force. Leia will become the Supreme Chancellor and ends up being the Chosen One, while Luke reunites the surviving Jedi of Order 66 and rebuilds the Jedi Order. In this trilogy, much like the one we know, Luke also goes into exile and dies as well. There are people who say that this planned trilogy by George Lucas would have been so much better than the one we saw. Many would say that Lucas had a plan, yet J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson, and Kathleen Kennedy did not. In my opinion, I gotta say it would have been awesome to see Lucas' planned trilogy. But after the way people received the prequel trilogy made by him and how toxic they were towards him and other actors like Jake Lloyd, Ahmed Best, and Hayden Christensen, it's no wonder that their toxicity caused Lucas to say, "Why do I even bother?" And so, we ended up with a trilogy started by J.J. Abrams, who is known for numerous shows such as Felicity, Alias, Lost, Fringe, and Duster. His directorial film work includes Mission Impossible 3, Star Trek, Super 8, and Star Trek Into Darkness. He directed The Force Awakens, executive produced The Last Jedi, and returned to direct the ill-fated movie, The Rise of Skywalker. The truth is that Disney rejected Lucas' planned sequel trilogy after purchasing Lucasfilm in 2012, choosing a different creative direction with J.J. Abrams, which left Lucas feeling betrayed as he provided treatments but the purchase agreement allowed Disney to ignore them, leading to the sequels focusing less on his ideas for Luke training new Jedi and more on scattered Empire remnants. I would admit that after reading this a year ago, it's one of the moments that I would totally look down on Disney. It could have been something phenomenal, but since Disney started to call the shots, it's no wonder we ended up with a trilogy provided by Abrams. Not saying that it is bad though. Yet at the same time, I respect Lucas' plans for canceling so he can raise his daughter. As they say, family comes first, and family is everything. I still remember watching the teaser of The Force Awakens in late 2014. This teaser hit the web and theaters the day after Thanksgiving and gave fans a glimpse of the new movie. This marked the first Star Wars film in a decade and created immense excitement, becoming a major cultural event. I still remember how excited I was to see a new Star Wars movie taking place many years after the original trilogy, introducing brand new characters in a brand new adventure across the galaxy. Before I could even see the movie, I remember watching every movie of the original and prequel trilogy before the premiere of The Force Awakens. While the excitement was peak for this new trilogy, there were some people who resorted to petty and hateful attitudes, and two of those things were both racism and sexism. Given how they're both very strong topics these days, racism and sexism were the very things that people who went to extremes would resort to regarding the teaser of The Force Awakens. There was racist backlash against its diverse cast, particularly British actor John Boyega, who played as Finn. His prominent role sparked online hate and calls for boycotts. The online backlash was imminent, questioning the casting of a black actor in a major role, with people saying that the diversity is forced. John Boyega would then tell these racist trolls to get used to it, and thank the supporting fans for their kindness and highlighting the importance of actors of color expressing their needs. In the defense of actors of color from the so-called fans of Star Wars, there have been actors of color since the original trilogy, such as the late and great James Earl Jones as the voice of Darth Vader, and Billy D. Williams as Lando Calrissian. And we have not only seen black actors like Samuel L. Jackson as Mace Windu, but other actors of different ethnicities such as Hugh Quarshie as Panaka, Bai Ling as Senator Brana Bremu in Revenge of the Sith, Jimmy Smits as Bail Organa, Femi Taylor as the Twilight Dancer in Return of the Jedi, etc. We had actors of color in later projects such as John Leguizamo as Gor Kurish in The Mandalorian, Moses Ingram as Reva in Obi-Wan Kenobi, Rosario Dawson in Ahsoka, Diego Luna in Rogue One and Andor, and Academy Award winner Lupita Nyong'o in the sequel trilogy. And let's not forget Pedro Pascal, Carl Weathers, Giancarlo Esposito, O'Shea Jackson Jr., Indira Varma, and Amandla Stenberg. Star Wars always had a broader representation and consistently featured BIPOC actors in various roles, from major film characters to those in animated and live-action TV shows as well. This contributed to the franchise's tapestry and diverse galaxy. Now, has the Star Wars series touched on racism? Yes. Now, the term for racism in Star Wars universe is called speciesism. The Galactic Empire was systematically racist as they were xenophobic and had a human-only policy. And I know what you're going to say. There was Thrawn, an alien Chiss. We know that Thrawn became Grand Admiral, yet the Empire used his flawless tactics and he endured the racism of the humans. Thrawn was a pragmatist who believed that the Empire was a necessary evil to protect his people. He might have ascended to Grand Admiral, but it could be possible that the Empire only saw him as a useful pawn. Historically speaking, there have been people from marginalized groups who were offered power, and for that, they were pawns of the oppressor. Many still do so, unfortunately, to this day. Count Dooku was a racist as well, as he believed that non-humans were inferior and disgusting, yet he reserved a degree of respect for the Geonosian Poggle the Lesser. In response to human prejudice, these aliens also formed anti-human settlements. To complain about the inclusion of the characters of color says so much about these complainers. When it comes to racial superiority, both the Empire and the First Order, the antagonistic faction in the sequel trilogy, are systematically racist as they believe that non-humans were inferior or threats, partly due to conflicts with separatist aliens. As you can see, the racism of the Galactic Empire and the First Order are parallels to Nazi Germany, which was known for its propaganda of racial superiority and systemic oppression, seeing all that did not embody what a human should look like as inferior and a threat to racial purity. There were not just racist trolls going after the sequel trilogy and labeling it as JW propaganda because of its diverse cast, but also calling it man-hating feminist propaganda. In the case of the main protagonist, Rey, played by Daisy Ridley, was criticized and labeled a Mary Sue due to being unrealistically powerful without training. Rey, being the female protagonist of the story, was considered a good change of pace by many fans, as it challenged traditional gender roles and the dominance of male heroes. Many of these sexist trolls felt threatened that a strong female character was the lead in this trilogy. The sexism would get even worse with The Last Jedi, with characters such as Emmeline Holdo, Leia Organa, and Rose Tico taking positions of authority, and in the case of Rose advising Finn, to not fight against what you hate, but for those that you love. These trolls hated the idea of a woman telling men what their fault was not, calling them out for insubordination, and advising them as well. The trolls believe that The Last Jedi was an anti-male movie because it portrays men as flawed, toxic, and incapable of doing anything right, and that it portrays the women as flawless and perfect and putting men in their place. Now, I do not believe that The Last Jedi was sexist towards men, because both male and female characters had flaws and sometimes were heroic, and it's not about women putting men in their place. Each of the characters have their own flaws, regardless of gender. The Star Wars sequel trilogy started out with Star Wars Episode 7 The Force Awakens, as we all know. The story takes place 30 years after Star Wars Episode 6 Return of the Jedi, where a new tyrannical regime has taken over the galaxy, known as the First Order, which rose from the ashes of the Galactic Empire. Many see the sequel trilogy as a repetition and modernization of the original trilogy. Others not only see it as both a repetition and modernization of the original trilogy, but also as a mockery and insult of what Star Wars was about by trying to push an agenda against a certain race and gender. However, there are those who see it in a positive lens as it brought not only old fans but new ones as well together. I must say that although there are things that seem repetitive, you cannot deny it had good visuals and character story arcs. I will say that I like the Starkiller base being both a super weapon and a planet at the same time, kind of like the ring worlds in Halo. Most people would defend the sequel trilogy, highlighting its stunning visuals, brand new characters, introduction of diverse characters for a new generation, compelling character arcs, thematic explorations of legacy and failure, offering fresh perspectives on the Force, etc. Of course, there are many things that people didn't like as well. The sequel trilogy isn't perfect, nor was the original trilogy, and nor was the prequel trilogy. Nothing is always perfect, as everything in this world has flaws. There are legitimate reasons to defend this trilogy as well as dislike it. There aren't just petty and stupid reasons for hating on the trilogy, such as accusing it of pushing a political agenda against a certain gender and certain race, but also petty and stupid reasons for defending it, such as calling someone with any type of ist or phobe for simply not liking it despite having legitimate reasons. My defense of the diverse cast is this. Many would say that these actors were chosen solely because of their gender and because of the color of their skin at the expense of their talent and criteria. No, they were not. They were chosen because of their talents, and to say otherwise with that kind of assumption is being petty and hateful. John Boyega, Daisy Ridley, and Oscar Isaac are well-recognized actors, with John and Daisy being recognized in the UK and even won awards as well. They were not chosen because of ethnicity and gender, but because of their talents and their skills. I mean, how hard is that to grasp? The sad thing is that when you add diversity and representation into something, there are people who will embrace this, but some people will think that it's all about pushing a political agenda. They think that diverse characters such as BIPOC, women, and LGBTQ are included just to push a political agenda. Diversity is important because it can give characters to be there for everyone, not just one specific color and gender, but everyone, regardless of the differences in color, gender, and sexual orientation. When I first saw The Force Awakens, I was blown away. I enjoyed such an amazing story with brand new characters in a brand new adventure. There were many great moments like when Han Solo and Chewie entered the Millennium Falcon, and then...
Chewie, we're home.
And that's exactly how so many of us Star Wars fans felt. We were right back home. I also enjoyed how Rey learned about the Force with the guidance of Maz Kanata and also the aerial battle in Takodana. And I also loved that space and aerial battle sequence in the Star Killer base. That moment when Han Solo died, it was very tragic as we see Kylo Ren plunging further into darkness. I also enjoyed how Finn left the First Order after being disturbed by their brutality and then charted his own destiny by joining the Resistance and befriending Poe Dameron, who is the leader of Black Squadron and one of the Resistance's elite fighter pilots. Though Poe Dameron didn't have many scenes, he was one hell of a pilot. Now, it was really cool to see how Finn faced off against Kylo Ren, even if the odds were against him in this fight. You cannot deny how brave he was, and then Rey fights Kylo, and when he tells her that he can show her the ways of the Force, she immediately rejects him to not be a monster like him and fall into darkness. The Force Awakens has a core message that is about the power of hope and belonging, finding your place, forging a new path, and that anyone regardless of their origins can be a hero and must always look forward, not just backwards. Now, many people will say that The Force Awakens is a repetition of A New Hope. Surely some moments feel similar to A New Hope, but you cannot deny that J.J. Abrams did a damn good job with this movie. Now, regarding the character of Rey, everyone since The Force Awakens have been calling her Mary Sue. Why? Many would say that she's a Mary Sue because of her use of the Force without training, defeating Kylo Ren, being a skillful pilot, being a skillful fighter, etc. In Defense of Rey, she is not a Mary Sue. She had been on Jakku, abandoned by her parents since she was a child, and was forced to learn how to survive. She's strong and powerful, but she's naive, and that naivety can be taken advantage of. Her fighting skills come from survival, as she was in an extremely dangerous environment where everyone fights for scraps and at each other's throats. She's good with a lightsaber, but with a blaster, that's a different story. She can fly a ship because, according to lore, she spent her downtime running flight simulators. She's good at fixing machines because she sells machine parts for food and tinkers with them as well. She would need to have a skill like this in a dangerous environment, or else she'll starve and die. She speaks alien because she's the only human living in Jakku and was around aliens her entire life, and that is why she can speak both droid and alien languages. Many trolls yell at how Rey used the Force without any training up until this day. To be honest, Rey did use the Force without any training, but so did Luke during the Death Star battle in A New Hope. And she defeated Kylo Ren mainly because of the circumstances. Kylo Ren was not at his best performance during the battle because he was injured by Chewbacca's blaster when the latter shot him in rage for killing Han Solo. When it comes to Rey flying the Millennium Falcon, she didn't fly it perfectly as she almost crashed it. And she got the number of the Kessel Run wrong.
This is a ship that made the Kessel Run in 14 parsecs.
12! 14.
When it comes to Rey having knowledge about machines and being a good pilot, in her defense, both Luke and Anakin were knowledgeable about machines and were great pilots. Anakin built a pod racer when he was only a child and blew up a Trade Federation ship in The Phantom Menace. Rey has many failings, such as believing that Finn was a fighter for the Resistance when he was not. Finn was a First Order stormtrooper who was disturbed by their brutality and ended up defecting at his own free will by charting his own destiny. Other failings that Rey has are clinging to the idea that her parents will return. In Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, Rey interprets Luke saying "reach out" as literal, gets tricked by him, and then smacked on the wrist for her idiocy. Rey is manipulated by Kylo Ren, gets captured by Snoke, and is easily bested by his Force powers. Rey naively believes that she can save Kylo, but all she ended up doing was freeing him from anything holding back his destructive personality. Rey tries to grab the lightsaber and accidentally breaks it. I will not deny that her being a Palpatine, as revealed in Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, felt forced, and I didn't like it. Although I was not too fond of Rey being a nobody, over the years I have learned to appreciate it. In that movie, she also has flaws as well, such as being in denial about her origins. Throughout this entire trilogy, Rey is just someone looking for her purpose and her place in the world. As you can see, Rey is not a Mary Sue. Now, am I saying that if you do not like Rey, you're automatically a misogynist? Short answer, no. That's not exactly what I am saying, and that is not what I believe. Rey did not ruin Star Wars. The haters are the ones smothering it with their petty and hateful complaints. Am I saying that the entire Star Wars fandom is toxic for not liking Rey? No. If people are so angry at Star Wars having female protagonists like Rey and Jyn Erso, then they are not true Star Wars fans. Ewan McGregor said it best. If it bothers you to see a BIPOC, a female, or LGBTQ character in Star Wars, then you're not a true Star Wars fan, and you're snitching on yourself with that kind of bigotry and pettiness. The Last Jedi is often considered the most divisive and controversial movie of the sequel trilogy due to subversion of expectations and the saga heading in a new direction. There are people who love it with all of their hearts, while others hate it to the core. Now, I will admit that I do not like certain things about The Last Jedi, like the MCU-style humor, the Canto Bight scene, how Captain Phasma was nerfed, and how some things felt rushed and predictable. My defense of The Last Jedi, however, is about its message regarding the past, the present, and the future. Kylo Ren and Luke Skywalker both have this belief to let the past die, but there's a difference between the two. Kylo Ren tried to violently erase the past, leading to destruction and out of his own nihilism. Luke sought self-imposed exile and Jedi annihilation out of shame and fear. Kylo Ren's reason was to sever ties with his fallen lineage and past life as Ben Solo. His violent rejection of his past, including killing his father and attempting to kill his own mother, only plunged him deeper into darkness and failed to bring him true peace, since he struggled with both light and the darkness. Luke's reason to erase the past was haunted by his failure with saving Ben Solo and the return of the Jedi's dark side. He tried to destroy his own past and legacy by saying that it was time for the Jedi to end. He was failing to learn from his mistakes. People tend to want to erase their past by not learning from their mistakes and blame it on everybody else, their failures of course. Killing the past and burying it are not exactly the answer to solve one's problems. Failing to learn from your own mistakes can lead to severe consequences. As you can see, both Kylo and Luke were wrong in trying to kill and bury the past. I love the moment when Yoda appeared before Luke when he told him that the greatest teacher is failure. And he's right. Failure can teach more than success and can inspire you to do a lot better. Yoda advised him that although he failed Ben Solo, he can still help Rey and the Resistance. And that's when we see Luke fighting Kylo Ren in the Battle of Crait, proving how much of a great hero he really is. Many haters of this movie still say how Rian Johnson ruined Luke Skywalker, while others defend this by saying that he understood how he would have changed over the years, hence the lightsaber throw, of course. Poe Dameron's arc is about being a leader and a hero. The reason why he was demoted is because he disobeyed direct orders. In the military, when you disobey orders from your superiors, you can be demoted or court-martialed depending on how severe the disobedience is. Though he succeeded in destroying the Dreadnought, his reckless disobedience led to the loss of many ships, a lot of deaths, and loss of resources as well. He had no place in the plan by Amilyn Holdo because he was demoted. They would have made a great team if they hadn't butted heads all the time. In the end, he truly learns what it means to be a leader. I thought it was a cool scene how Leia used the Force to push herself back into the ship. I still remember how they called her Mary Poppins and thought it was a Mary Sue thing to do. Have they forgotten how Luke told her in Return of the Jedi that she would learn how to use the Force as he did? Have they also forgotten how she sensed that Luke was in danger when they were escaping from Bespin in Empire Strikes Back? I guess they did. Finn was advised by Rose Tico what it truly means to fight for something when he tries to leave. She shows this by preventing him from killing himself. Now, the Canto Bight sequence I didn't like that much because it felt like watching a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie than Star Wars. Still, you cannot deny that it shows how the rich and powerful profit from wars. Historically speaking, they always did that. World War II, the Vietnam War, the Gulf War, the Second Gulf War. The rich and powerful often profit from wars. Although I still believe to this day that the death of Snoke felt rushed, I won't deny that I liked the battle sequence in the throne room, and the lightspeed crash was pretty cool, I must admit. Yes, in the past I said that this movie was mediocre and gave it a C. But after seeing it again and understanding it better, I can give it a solid B at best. The Rise of Skywalker was generally considered the black sheep of the sequel trilogy. The reason why so many people hated the movie is because it felt like a rushed and messy retcon of The Last Jedi and the sidelining of characters like Rose Tico. Not forgetting that a lot of people felt that Palpatine's return felt forced and unexplained, in which I totally agree. If you think that the character development in The Last Jedi was terrible, then you're wrong. The character development in this movie was not good, as some characters were sidelined, and Lando Calrissian had a very short return. Now, it is known that a lot of fans did not like The Last Jedi, yet this movie was a very poor attempt at trying to please them. Many would say that after The Last Jedi, the damage was done by trying to send the franchise in a new direction. People still blame Rian Johnson for messing up the Star Wars franchise up until this day. I almost don't feel like defending this movie because it was awful, but its core message is about finding your own destiny and choosing family over your own lineage. Though a lot of people didn't like Rey being a Palpatine and then choosing to be a Skywalker, you cannot deny that rejecting your own dark history and heritage can lead to a bright future. I like the idea of making Kylo Ren an irredeemable villain, which I believe Rian Johnson was planning after The Last Jedi. But making him redeemable also felt a bit too forced. Still, not everyone is beyond saving, even the worst ones. Family doesn't always have to be blood relations. It's about people you love and return that love you give them. As said in the Beatles song, The End, the love you get is equal to the love you give. It can also show that through fear, you can find your own courage. Courage is about not being afraid. It's about acting despite being afraid, showing the strength to move forward, making tough decisions, and standing up for something greater even if you're afraid. Luke's wisdom guides Ben and Rey that acknowledging your own fear is crucial to overcome the darkness. Even in the moments of utter defeat, there is hope as we see the voices of past Jedi motivate Rey to stand up and fight. Sometimes, even bad movies can have good themes and elements. What matters most, however, is how you execute them. Now, even if the sequel trilogy ended badly, you cannot deny that some good themes came out after it, such as The Mandalorian, The Bad Batch, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and so on. While the sequel trilogy may not be every Star Wars fan's cup of tea, you cannot deny that it has its good moments. With this essay, I am not saying you have to love this trilogy. You can love it, you can dislike it, whatever makes you comfortable. Forcing people to hate the sequel trilogy because you hate it is not okay. And neither is forcing people to love it because you do. Now, if you think that the sequel trilogy is suddenly Star Wars going feminist, then you forgot how Padme and Leia were leaders of resistance groups fighting their oppressors. Both were skilled in combat and barely needed any saving from any man. It's always been feminist and political since the battle against the Empire is based on World War II. The Empire was fascist and totalitarian. The rebels were anti-fascist. The First Order is fascist and totalitarian. The Resistance, or should I call it the Reborn Rebellion, is anti-fascist. Most of the women in Star Wars in the Legends timeline and Disney era were capable combatants, able leaders, and barely needed saving from any man. Which means it's always been feminist. Whether you love or dislike the trilogy, never force anyone to love it or hate it. If you don't like it, make sure your reasons are legitimate and not petty and hateful. If you like it, make sure your reasons are legitimate and not call anyone with an ist or phobe because they didn't. This was a defense of the Star Wars sequel trilogy. I'm John of Video Games in the World, signing off. May the Force be with you.